Hello there and welcome to you Talking to Me. Today the European Parliament rejected the European Commission's proposal to allow member states to ban the use and the import of GMOs products in their territories, food and feed products. What would happen now in the debate between the pro and anti-GMOs countries? That's a discussion we will have today with two members of the European Parliament, Mr. Claude Turmes, you're a Luxembourgish member from the Greens, hello.
Hi.
And Philippe de Backer, you're a Belgian member from the Liberals group.
Hello.
Hello and welcome both of you. So the majority of EU lawmakers decided to maintain the current EU legislation on the import and the use of GMOs. So are you satisfied, Mr. Turmes, with this decision?
So 619 MEPs, I repeat 619 out of 700, so
nearly
a huge
everybody.
Majority rejected Commission President Juncker's proposal because he had proposed a system which was which could never function. I explain you why. You would have had ships bringing in GMO modified feed to Antwerpen. It would have been put on a lorry and afterwards there would not have been any control possible. So how can you enforce a national ban if basically you have no control possibilities? So, and I think the proposal of Commission was not feasible. We know that it was not even compatible with WTO, so it had to be rejected. Now the question is, will Commission come forward with a real proposal?
We will come back on this.
And we have some ideas as Greens what should be in a real proposal.
Okay, Mr. de Backer, I wanted to know, I mean, the other main argument is also that this national ban would affect the internal market. So now, is it better, this decision?
We have set up a whole and very strict regulatory systems in order to approve GMOs basically at European level, because we want to safeguard it also the internal market structure. The fact is that EFSA always approved and had a positive advice. EFSA is the European Food and Safety Authority. So they always did a positive check of what GMOs consisted of and what would be the effect on the environment, on society and others. The member states never could agree to put GMOs forward, and so basically the whole procedures like it is functioning today always blocked on the decision made by member states. Some were for, some were against. And so that procedure has to be revisited. The European Commission has to show leadership here in order to make sure that there is a set of regulations in place which allow a thorough check of GMOs, but at the same time, once this is approved, that we also keep the structure of the internal market and that member states can no longer opt out based on anything but scientific reasons.
Yeah, so we will listen to a recorded question from our Spanish partner, from Andrea from Castilla y León Radio.
The European Union imports from the United States more than 47 products derived from genetically modified crops, and 93% of corn, soybeans, or cotton coming from this country, from the United States, is also modified, and the European citizens consume it. So does not have a double standard when some countries are trying to ban it?
So Mr. Turmes, would a double standard, as Andrea said, work in a Europe as a border-free European Union that we live in?
No, I think the actual situation is not satisfactory. And one of the problems is that we have labels on some products in the supermarkets, but we do not have labels on GMO-fed cows and so beef and pork and chicken. So, and I suppose that the Liberals are probably also with us on asking that we should have labels so that at least the consumers have a choice. And the second issue is, and that's probably a point where I disagree with Mr. de Backer.
So the labels we don't really understand. So the labels on which foods
if we have beef in a supermarket or elsewhere, which is fat which has been basically nourished with GMO, which is often the case today, then you as a consumer, you are not even informed about it. So we have absolutely no transparency about where this GMO is used, and I think that's the least which we should have for citizens, is a label for meat, which is basically where GMO is entering the food chain. And the other Good, but maybe
So
that
this
we
would be
say
the priority.
That's really, but you're saying, Claude, I'm very sorry, this is scientific nonsense. There's no trace of GMO in the meat of GMO fed animals. And that's the fundamental discussion that we're having. When you look at the EFSA reports, the Food Safety Authority, it's very clear that we are eating GMO fed animals already for years. There's never been an adverse event. There's never been a health issue. So what is the fundamental problem here? That the science tells you there is no issue, there is no problem, and that you're looking out of ideological reasons to put something on a labeling or whatsoever. It's not about choice, it's about the scientific facts. There is no difference between a GMO and a normal fed cow.
No, but that is too easy. There is a lot of scientific evidence about the negative impact of certain of the GMO cultivation.
There's none.
And the problem is that citizens in Europe are opposed to this, and I think citizens in Europe are opposed in majority to green gene tech in Europe, but they are also opposed that this is done in Argentina, in US and so on. So the least, and that I think is a major contradiction for the liberals, is that you seem to be against informing European citizens of a choice.
About informing citizens, I mean, I have a comment on Facebook. Sven wrote, the national interest in the member state decisions are not the same that the MEPs' interest. So don't you think we should organize an EU referendum on this GMO issue? Let the people decide. Mr. De Backer?
My point is the following. You set up a European procedure where you say we will do a thorough check whether these GMOs are safe and there is an environmental impact. For 20 years we have found nothing. And so once you put that procedure in place, then of course it's up to the farmers and to the consumers to decide whether they want GMO cultivation, yes or no, whether they want to have the choice to consume it, yes or no. But you also have to stick to the scientific fact. For example, if you talk about feed, there is no difference. It's impossible to label that kind of meat and to tell a difference. Secondly, on cultivation, it's exactly the same. There, of course, you can have a choice. But now what we are doing is we are de-Europeanizing the whole procedure. We say, member states, you now have to take the responsibility for this. And this, I think, is not correct. You put scientific standards in, and it's the same, Claude, that's something I don't understand from your side. For example, when you go to Paris on the climate negotiations, there are these climate skeptics who say there's no global warming. You say these are nutcases and fringe scientists and crazy scientists. Well, the people who are attacking GMOs based on science are exactly the same people. And so accept the one or the other.
If there is really, so let's say animal protection, you eat a beef steak from a cow which has been not well treated. So are you against having animal protection standards?
No, of course not.
Scientifically you cannot prove that the chicken which is raised under very bad conditions that it tastes less good, or there is a risk. So the same thing is true for GMO.
No fundamental difference between GMO and normal feed. That's the whole discussion.
What we want for citizens is to have a choice, and I'm really surprised that the liberals are against giving citizens a choice on is my beef steak or my chicken
is my chicken an ideology on the market.
No, it's no
what you're trying to do.
I just want a free choice.
I try to stick to the scientific.
And the second issue is that recently we have seen a big fraud on the imports of products. We have 6 Syngenta, which is one of the main producers who have imported mice to Europe, which were not declared as GMO modified, whereas they were. So we have a root problem.
Where was it imported?
It was imported to Europe, and EFSA was not aware that these huge volumes of mice from Syngenta were imported to Europe, and they were declared not GMO, whereas they had GMO. So
because the percentage was so low, and the GMOs were approved by EFSA. So again,
we will go on the debate and following on the cultivation.
We need a reform of EFSA to be much tougher and much more transparent about
you have to accept the scientific facts after 20 years. That's what you need to do.
Okay, so the Commission's proposal and followed another one. So we were talking about cultivation because last March the member states could decide on the cultivation of GMOs or not. So there are some confusion among the citizens, and we have a comment on Facebook. Gida wrote, sometimes we read that the EU decide to ban GMOs, sometimes to authorize them. When will we have a definitive position? Mr. De Backer.
when we follow the European rules. There is a procedure to follow in order to get a GMO on the market. That procedure is very clear. The European Food and Safety Authority has been doing this for many, many years already, and the procedure is very clear and very strict and very good. What happens, of course, is that the moment that the decision by the member states is being blocked, these products cannot come to the market. And so we have now seen that there have been applications which have been stuck for many, many years and have not been able to come to the market. So I agree with Claude that we have to find a better solution than today, because now we're in this kind of hybrid situation where we say, yes, you can find a path to bring something to the market, but in reality, it's impossible.
Okay, so and to make it more simple, we have another question from our German partner, Claudia from AMS Radio. We listen.
Hello to everybody. My question is, what could be the problem if we would just say no GMO at all for the whole EU, not for animal feeding and not for other reasons?
Mr. Turmes, that would be the easiest
there would
solution.
be no problem, and from an economic point of view it would even be beneficial, because today we are spending billions of euro to buy soya, from gene manipulated soya from US and from Argentina, while we should basically, and we could raise proteins in Europe to feed our cows. So this whole division of work, doing GMO outside of Europe and not raising what we nourish our cows and porks and chicken, this is also economically completely counterproductive.
So is it a waste of money?
No,
GMOs?
because there's a reason why it is done, because the production in Europe today of the normal maize and other proteins is much more expensive. And so what we should do is indeed cultivate it here, but also allow GMO. And so what would happen if we ban completely GMO? First of all, a lot of science and research would disappear. It already happened. A lot of the science and research has gone to the US, has gone to other countries. Secondly, for agriculture, it costs around 1 billion euros a year in lack of competitiveness when we don't use GMO. So for the farmers, it's a bad position. And thirdly, also for the consumer, we are now in a new generation of GMOs, which also have clear health benefits to consumers, for example, and European consumers will not be able to benefit from this. And so the fundamental debate will be, when this technology is not adopted in Europe, we will lag behind in competitiveness, in economic growth, and also in health benefits for the consumer.
Okay.
I really strongly disagree. I think really now telling that GMO is even good for your health, that is an abusive health claim.
Look at golden rice, for example. Look at golden rice.
So we'll conclude now. So after this decision, do you think the European Commission will come back with another proposal? Because they already say they want.
The first thing which has to happen now is that we get member states also to be on the position of the European Parliament. We know that the French government is already on our side. We are now trying to get other governments on our side. This will make it even clearer to Mr. Juncker and Commission that their original proposal has no chance to survive. And I think that should be acted now. And then we need a new proposal. This new proposal should have a reform of EFSA. So the way we authorize. Second is we need labeling, and third is we should start to grow our own proteins and not to be dependent of US and Argentina, and to throw out billions for buying this from outside Europe.
Mr. De Backer, your last word on this debate, and then
I agree that we need reform, and I think the European Commission will have to take responsibility here to come up with a European solution and not allow the member states to have their own say based on whatever reason they can find. I think it's really important indeed that we have a clear structure on how we approve GMOs in Europe. So
the qualified majority,
that's very clear.
Or simple majority.
No, very clear European rules based on the scientific facts which are around. Secondly, indeed, give consumers the choice they can have, but also make sure that they can choose based on the fact that there's really a difference between what they are choosing.
Yeah, so
and thirdly, I think it's important also that we allow the technology to be developed here in Europe. It was discovered here in Europe. Let's make it also work for agriculture and for our consumers.
So the debate between pro and anti-GMOs is not ended, that's sure. Thank you for coming, both of you, and thank you for watching us. See you next time. Bye.